Hey everyone, and welcome to our final governor prediction. This is Bridging the Gap's final governorship prediction. My name is Alvin. I lean right on most issues, and I'll be representing the Republican side.
My name is Luke. I lean left on most issues, and I'll be representing the Democratic side. Hey guys, so yes, as you heard in our intro there, this is our final gov prediction for the 2024 elections. Yeah, we have our little list of races here. We're going to input our margins, and then it'll average out to create our final predictions.
Yeah, so I guess we can take turns going first. Maybe I'll just start off with Washington, one of my home states. It's where I grew up, Washington State. And Washington State, I currently have as a very safe win for the Democrat nominee. Bob Ferguson over Dave Reicher. I have him winning by 15.7 points.
Mm,
Pretty big win. I'll just type it in here. And the reason I'll give for this, it looks very good from obviously Washington is a safe Democrat state. For now, the polling has Ferguson up at 12.4%, but I have pretty good reason to believe that he's going to outperform that. If you look at the history of Washington State. Biden won by 19.2
hmm
points, but if you go into the governor race, the Democrat there did not win by that much. She only won
Yep.
by around 13, and Washington has a tendency to split the tickets, favoring more Republicans on the state level and favoring Democrats on the federal level. I have uh, for multitudes of reasons, and I'm sure I'll let you talk about the primary because I know you love talking about that. But I have
Yep.
uh, Bob Frickson up 15.7.
Yep. I happen to believe that. I mean, okay. First, I'll start with my margin here, and I'll just type it in real quick. I have the Dem winning here by about 14. It's like I'll say we'll put 14.5. Okay. Pretty similar margin to you, to be honest. Yeah, Democrats gonna be winning by a solid margin here. Yeah, the Democrat in this race obviously is the current Attorney General. Um, and the Republican running against him is a more moderate Republican from he's a former representative from the 8th district, which is one of the more swingy districts in Washington. Um, so yeah, he has like his roots in that more moderate swingy part of the state, and he's built a lot. As a result, he's built a lot of trust in the biggest county, Kings County. Um, Now, looking at the Washington primary here, the Washington does primaries in a fashion where essentially they have every candidate on the ballot and the top two move on. But when they do this, we can kind of see the margins between Democrats as a whole, if you add up all the Democratic candidates running, and Republicans as a whole, if you add up all the Republicans running. And if you do this for this particular governor's election, it puts the Dem up about 12 points. Like this is actually notably a lower margin than the other races in the state. They put the Senate race, the Democrat was running way ahead of this, for example. And I believe the statewide average was like plus 16. So he's running like obviously because the Republicans have a stronger candidate here. This is going to be closer than your average Washington race. But at the end of the day, our margins are the where they are because this is a solid blue state, and we do definitely believe the Democrats going to come up by a really healthy margin here.
Yeah, in 2022, there's a semi-competitive Senate race there that everyone thought might be a little closer, and then the Democrats outperformed that polling. Here, I have Ferguson doing that too, although running behind Kamala Harris. That's going to get Democrats to 22 of the 50 governorships across the country, with Republicans starting at 25. So now we'll move on to Indiana, and I'll let you take that first.
Yeah, so Indiana is a race we haven't really talked about so far this cycle, but it does seem to be there does seem to be some more attention on it recently. A lot of like ratings organizations have moved it from like solid to likely as of recent. Um, So, like, I mean, yeah, I think that personally, I just believe, I think that's because there's been more polling recently. This is a pretty underpolled race because it's in Indiana, like a solid red state. For reference, Trump won the state by 16 points. But yeah, here in this election for governor, we have current Senator Mike Braun running for the Republicans. So, high name recognition. He's a senator. He's popular in the state. He's running against Jennifer McCormick, who's running as a Democrat. But she was formally elected statewide, I believe for like a state superintendent role. And but yeah, she was formally elected statewide as a Republican, so she switched parties and is now running as a Democrat. So she's running, and also there's a third party candidate here, Donald Rainwater, who's running as a libertarian. And the reason why we're mentioning the third party candidate here is because um, back in 2020, he did really well for some reason. Yeah, if you want to, like, I don't know, like, okay. But yeah, he won by, I believe, 11, no, sorry, not one, but he garnered 11% of the vote, which is very, very significant for a third party. Um, and yeah, so that could potentially factor into the race and maybe take some votes from Braun, the Republican running. Yeah, so I think considering all of that and that the Democrats are running a former Republican, I definitely think this race is going to be closer than the statewide margins in the state of Indiana. I'll say this. I think I'll put my result at 13.2 in favor of the Republicans personally. Um, yeah, I think it's going to be closer.
Okay,
Actually,
I mean,
I'll lower it a little more. I'll adjust it. I'll do 12.2. I'll put
okay,
that there.
I'm
Yeah.
glad you did that because written in my notes sheet is actually 13.2, and I was actually shocked when you said that. There is no collusion here. I did not reveal this to
Oh,
Luke
good. Because
before.
I just switched. I just dropped mine a point. So there
Right,
we go.
yeah, yeah. And
There we go.
yeah, and I actually did think it was going to be somewhere around 12, 13 points. I ultimately went with 13 because I do think that if you look at the third party, Donald Rainwater, the Libertarian, he's been polling significantly weaker compared to his result in 2020, and I think he's likely to do even worse than what he's polling at. And if you look at the 2020 result, yes, he has 11%, but if you do take a look at the polling back in 2020, if I can get to it, Rainwater was pulling a lot better. He was pulling around what he eventually ended up getting, ending,
Hmm.
10, 15%. And if you look at the eventual result, yeah, he sort of goes in line with that. But if you look at 2024, he's already a one-time loser. That's going to hurt his credibility in the state. And if you look at this, he's very low. And in the head-to-head, Braun is winning around, 10 to 12 points. Okay, that's cool. I think that Braun is as a senator, he's going to eventually
Yeah.
outperform that as well. But he is probably going to run behind Trump. Trump, if we look at the 2020 margin, Trump won Indiana by 16. Indiana might, even shift even more, although it did shift to the left in 2020. This was around the margin that it shifted, the country shifted, I should say. And so with
Hmm.
the country likely to shift right from 2020, Trump's going to do better this year than in 2020, and that's going to help Mike Braun. So that's going to be a majority of governorships for Republicans
Yep.
already now in the governor's controls. Now we have 26, 22, and I'll take North Carolina, I suppose. So if we do talk about North Carolina now, it's probably the most interesting race uh, potentially this cycle. I mean, yeah, New Hampshire will be closer, sure, but North Carolina might be the most interesting, and I say that for a lot of reasons. But of course, the primary reason is Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson, who has been scandal plagued from start to finish. I have no idea how he even ended up in lieutenant governor. But if you look at the history of North Carolina, it has, voted for President Trump uh, back to back, and Democrats haven't won it since, back in 2008, where Obama barely clutched the state. And so that was good for him. But if you look at the governor level, if you take a look at 2020, you'll see that Roy Cooper, who might have been selected for vice president if he didn't decline. He won the state by a very healthy margin, even though Trump was at the top of the ticket. And if you go back, of course, to 2016, he did it again, even though Trump won the state. And so Democrats have been historically better
Hmm.
on the state level, and this is coupled by the fact that Mark Robinson, like I said, was scandal plagued. He has a lot of scandals. Honestly, he has scandals revolving around his personal life. He has scandals around his political life. You know what he says, what he does on the internet, some of which is not even family friendly. So we can't even talk about it in detail here. But yeah, this has translated to an absurd polling margin for Josh Stein, um, who, was already fielding a strong campaign early on. But when Biden was still in the race and the tea hadn't spilled on Mark Robinson yet, it was looking like a very competitive race. But since Kamala's taken the Democrats to a little better heights, and then Josh Stein has now run a very error-free campaign while Mark Robinson has been committing blunder after blunder. Now Stein's leading the polling averages by 15. I'm
Yeah.
gonna say though that I think Robinson will do a little better than the polling because I think it might be harder for people to say they support Mark Robinson over a poll, etc. But when the low propensity voter for Trump comes out and votes, he's probably gonna vote for Mark Robinson. I have this race at D plus 14.2, just a
Okay.
hair above the polling margin. Yep.
Yeah. I too obviously. Actually, I'll just drop my number. I
Okay.
I have it at 12.1, so I have it closer. I have it closer than you, but obviously, I mean, yeah, this is no, I just have it closer here because I do feel, yeah, I agree with you that there is going to be some social desirability bias in the polling. I think Robinson's name is going to be so thoroughly driven through the mud that some people might want to hide their responses on the poll and say, yeah, I'm not supporting him, but when they actually vote, do vote for him. Um, so yeah, I am skeptical the polling gap is that large. Like right now, like yeah, he's polling something like 15, 16 points. Josh Stein is polling 15, 16 points ahead of Kamala Harris in the state. Um, so yeah, I don't think that gap is going to be that big, but yeah, I think it's still going to be pretty hefty by the at the end of the day. So 12, yeah. Mhm.
Agreed. All right. Yeah, so I guess you can start with New Hampshire then. When now that, Democrats have now clinched their 23rd seat in these governor mansions.
Yep. So here is the closest of the governor's races. Um, yeah, so basically, the incumbent Republican governor of New Hampshire, Chris Sununu, like who's a moderate Republican, is retiring. So currently we have Kelly Ayotte, a former senator, running to replace him as a Republican, and I believe it's this Joyce Craig, who I believe is the mayor of Manchester, New Hampshire. Um, she's a mayor of one of the largest cities in New Hampshire. Um, yes, I am
Yep.
correct.
Yep.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
And yeah, so she's running as a Democrat in this race. Now, I think New Hampshire's almost certainly going to vote for Kamala Harris on the presidential level. But New Hampshire is completely fine with electing Republicans on a statewide level. Like, I mean, as I've mentioned before, they have a Republican governor currently, and they've elected him by wide margins before. So considering that, and combined with the fact that the polling is overwhelmingly favoring Ayotte, I do have Ayotte slightly favored in this race. And also, and I think another reason for this is just because their primaries are the latest in the country. They happened just in September, so like a month ago. So a low name recognition mayor like Joyce Craig is not going to be able, she's going to struggle to get her name out there compared to a former senator in Kelly Ayotte. So, yeah, if you want to go back to the sheet here, I personally put it at Republicans Ayotte winning by 1.5.
Okay, I have a very similar margin. I have it at 1.2. And the thing with, the race, I think you basically hit on every single point. So there's not actually that much to add here of substance. But yeah, like you said, Ayotte, former US Senator, barely lost in 2016 her seat, and now she's trying to come back into state politics. I think this was one of the strongest Republicans that could have been possibly nominated here, and so it's going to be really good for Republicans. I think if they nominate a weaker candidate here, like they might have done in 2022 with Don Bolduc, Joyce Craig would take the governorship, but
Hmm.
Kelly Ayotte is a statewide known name, like you said, has the Sununu endorsement, who, like we said before, Sununu has won very handedly in the race. I think New Hampshire, the New Hampshire population is going to support sort of keeping that, continual Republican control of the governorship. And, that obviously factors into my decision. I also looked at another thing that maybe you didn't look at, maybe you did, but I looked at these polls, especially the ones that also survey the presidential race in 2024. And so I looked at sort of what their margins were on the presidential race. So if we look at the presidential race, I'm sure we can come out to here and then go to New Hampshire. So if you scroll down to these same polls, most of the
Hmm.
polls in the governorship race also took the time, because it's just one more question, to look at the presidential race. And so, for example, you have this Emerson College
Yeah.
poll that has Kamala Harris up by 3 to 4. This is a pretty good poll for Trump, actually, because if he's only losing New Hampshire by 3 to 4, he's probably not ceding that much ground uh, among more educated white voters. That's going to be good for him. But if you go back to the same poll in the New Hampshire governor race, you have Iowa up 3 to 4, and so it's sort of a flip flop margin. So for example, you have Iowa running ahead of Trump by around 7 to 8. That looks good for her, just from that start. But then if you think about how New Hampshire is probably more likely to go. I think it's more likely to underestimate Harris in the state. I think she's actually more likely to match, Biden's margin
Yeah.
in 2020, win by around 6. Maybe she'll cede a little ground there because the national environment's moving to the right. New Hampshire's also rejecting incumbents. Usually, they don't like incumbent parties. But regardless of that, Biden up by 7. Harris probably going to win by around 6. And so if the poll had, Harris up by 3 to 4. She's going to win by 6. Okay, we revert this back. Okay, Iota's probably up by 1. Not a
Hmm.
perfect math, but regardless, yeah. So we both have Iota winning this state by
Hmm.
a lean margin. That's going to lead to Republicans controlling 27 governorships and Democrats controlling 23 with 0 flips on the board.
No
Sorry,
flips.
sorry for the boring map. Um, so I guess I'll mark that in 23 to 27, and all of
Yep.
us have this as 23, 27, and I'll do this and I'll bold it and I'll make it bigger so that it looks nice and good. But 23 to 27, 27 governorships for the Republicans and 23 for the Democrats.
Yep.
All right, guys. So thanks so much for watching. Our schedule, like we've said before, is that tomorrow, which this video is going to release on the 1st. So on the 2nd, we're going to drop our house prediction. As you can see in the spreadsheets here, they're just waiting in the wings. On the 3rd, we're going to drop our Senate prediction. So definitely stay
Hmm.
tuned for that. And then on the 4th, the day before Election Day, when hopefully all the data will be in, we're going to release our final presidential prediction, which Luke and I have been talking about. It's very interesting. So you definitely want to watch that. Make sure you like this video down below. Comment down below what you think will happen in the governorship race, especially New Hampshire. If you think differently from us, tell us why. And yeah, subscribe to the channel for future predictions and share this video with your family and friends. Thanks for watching.
See you guys.